I was sitting in the principal's office when the boy who'd been tormenting my niece for months asked if he could speak to me, alone. My sister Sarah grabbed my arm. "Absolutely not, Marcus. This kid has made Emma's life hell for 6 months." But something in the boy's eyes stopped me. Fear. Real, genuine fear. Not the cocky smirk I'd seen in the school hallway when he shoved Emma's books to the floor. Not the cold indifference when she came home crying for the 3rd time that week. "It's okay," I said, pulling my arm free. 5 minutes. The principal looked uncertain, but nodded. Sarah shot me a look that said we'd be talking about this later, then left with Emma and the principal. The door clicked shut. The boy, his name was Tyler Morrison, 14 years old, same as Emma, reached into his backpack. His hands were shaking. "Mr. Chen, I need to show you something, and I need you to not freak out." He pulled out a leather-bound diary, brown, worn at the edges, with a small brass lock that had been broken, the kind of diary you'd find in an antique shop or your grandmother's attic. My blood went cold, because I recognized that diary. I'd seen one exactly like it before, 23 years ago. Tyler opened it to a random page and held it up. The handwriting was neat, precise, slanted slightly to the right. My handwriting, from when I was 15 years old. "How did you get that?" My voice came out as a whisper. "That's what I need to talk to you about, because according to this diary, you're my father." Let me back up. Let me tell you how I ended up in that principal's office in the first place, and why everything that happened next would turn my entire world upside down. 6 months earlier, my niece Emma started 9th grade at Lincoln High, same school I'd graduated from back in 2001. She was excited, nervous, full of that teenage energy that makes you believe anything is possible. By October, she was coming home with red eyes and fake smiles. "Emma, what's wrong?" Sarah would ask. "Nothing, Mom. Just tired." But I knew better. I'd been a teenage boy once. I knew what nothing meant when it came from a kid who used to talk your ear off about everything. It was early November when Emma finally broke down. Sarah called me at midnight, crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Marcus, you need to come over. Now." Emma just told me everything. I drove to their house in my pajamas, found Emma curled up on the couch, her face buried in a pillow, her whole body shaking with sobs. There was a boy at school, Tyler Morrison. He'd started targeting her the 2nd week of school. Small things at first, knocking her books over, making comments about her clothes, spreading rumors. Then it escalated. He'd trip her in the hallway, pour water on her lunch, convince other kids to exclude her from group projects. The worst part? The teachers never saw it. Tyler was smart. He only struck when adults weren't looking. And when Emma tried to report it, Tyler would act confused, innocent. "I don't know what she's talking about, Miss Rodriguez. I've never even spoken to her." "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Sarah asked, holding Emma tight. "Because I thought I could handle it," Emma sobbed. "Because I didn't want to be weak. Because he said if I told anyone, he'd make it worse." That's when I made a decision. I was going to that school. I was going to talk to the principal, the teachers, Tyler's parents, whoever I needed to talk to. Nobody was going to treat my niece like this. The meeting was scheduled for a Friday afternoon. Me, Sarah, Emma, the principal, Tyler, and Tyler's mother, a tired-looking woman named Rebecca Morrison, who worked 2 jobs and looked like she hadn't slept in a year. Tyler sat there with his arms crossed, that same cocky expression on his face, until the principal started reading the list of incidents Emma had documented. Then something changed. The cockiness faded. He looked conflicted, like he was fighting some internal battle. That's when he asked to speak to me alone. Now, here we were. Tyler Morrison, my niece's bully, claiming to be my son, holding a diary I'd written when I was 15 years old. "That's impossible," I said. "I don't have any children. I've never—" "Read it," Tyler interrupted, pushing the diary toward me. "Page 47. My hands trembled as I took the diary.
I hadn't seen this thing in over 2 decades. I thought it was lost, thrown away, destroyed. I had written in it during the worst year of my life, freshman year of high school, when my parents were getting divorced and I was angry at the world. I flipped to page 47. October 15th, 2000. I met someone today. Her name is Rebecca. She's a junior, and she's the first person who's actually listened to me in months. We talked for hours at the park. She didn't judge me for being angry about the divorce. She didn't tell me to man up or get over it. She just listened. I think I might be falling for her.
My throat tightened. I remembered Rebecca. Not Tyler's mother. This was a different Rebecca. Rebecca Chen. No relation, just the same last name. She'd been my first real crush. We dated for 3 months before she moved to Oregon with her family. Keep reading, Tyler said quietly. I flipped through more pages, entries about Rebecca Chen, about our relationship, about how she was the only good thing in my life that year. And then, on page 63, November 30th, 2000, Rebecca told me she's pregnant. I don't know what to do. We're just kids. Her parents are going to kill her. My parents are too busy destroying each other to care about me, let alone a baby. She's scared. I'm scared. But I told her I'd be there for her. Whatever she decides, I'll support her. I stopped reading. My vision blurred. This isn't possible, I said. Rebecca moved to Oregon. We lost touch? She never told me. She didn't move to Oregon. She died. In childbirth, December 2000. The room spun. My mom, Rebecca Morrison, she was Rebecca Chen's best friend. When Rebecca died, my mom adopted me, raised me as her own. She never told me the truth until last month. Why? The word came out broken. Why would she keep this from you? From me? Because Rebecca Chen's parents made her promise. They didn't want you involved. They blamed you for their daughter's death. They said you'd ruined her life, gotten her pregnant, destroyed her future. They wanted you to never know you had a son. I couldn't breathe. The walls were closing in. My mom kept the diary. Rebecca Chen gave it to her before she died, made her promise to give it to me when I was old enough to understand. I found it last month when I was looking for my birth certificate. That's when my mom finally told me everything. But why? I had to stop, swallow, try again. Why have you been bullying Emma? Tyler's face crumpled. For the first time, he looked like the scared 14-year-old kid he actually was. Because I was angry. Because I found out my whole life was a lie. Because I have a father who's been living 20 minutes away my entire life and never knew I existed. And then I found out Emma was your niece, and I wanted to hurt you. I wanted you to feel even a fraction of what I was feeling. He wiped his eyes roughly. But then I saw what I was doing to her. I saw her crying in the bathroom. I heard her tell her friend she didn't want to come to school anymore. And I realized I was becoming exactly what I hated. Someone who hurts innocent people because they're in pain. The door opened. Sarah stuck her head in. Everything okay in here? I looked at Tyler, at this boy who was apparently my son, who had my eyes, my nose, the same way my hair used to stick up in the back before I learned to use gel. How had I never noticed? Sarah, I said slowly, I need you to sit down because what I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane. The next 2 hours were chaos. Sarah didn't believe it at first. Neither did the principal. But Tyler had brought more than just the diary. He had Rebecca Chen's death certificate, hospital records from December 2000, a letter Rebecca had written to her best friend explaining everything, begging her to take care of the baby. And he had a DNA test kit. I bought it last week, Tyler said. I was going to ask you to take it, but I didn't know how. That's why I asked for this meeting. I couldn't keep bullying Emma, but I also couldn't just walk away without knowing the truth. We did the test right there in the principal's office, swapped our cheeks, sealed the samples, sent them to the lab with rush processing. The results would take 3 days. 3 days of not sleeping. 3 days of Sarah alternating between hugging me and yelling at me for keeping secrets, even though I'd had no idea. 3 days of Emma looking at me like a stranger. 3 days of thinking about Rebecca Chen. Sweet, kind Rebecca, who'd listened to an angry 15-year-old boy rant about his parents' divorce, who'd held my hand and told me everything would be okay, who died giving birth to my son, and I never even knew. Tyler's mother, Rebecca Morrison, called me on day 2. She said, "I'm sorry." Her voice was thick with tears. "I'm so sorry I never told you. Rebecca Chen's parents, they were so angry, so hurt. They made me promise. And then years passed and it seemed easier to just let Tyler believe I was his biological mother. I thought I was protecting him. Did you know who I was?" I asked. When Tyler started at Lincoln High? "No, I didn't know you had a niece there. I didn't even know you still lived in town. I thought you'd moved away years ago." "I need to meet you," I said. "We need to talk about Tyler, about what happens next." "I know. I'm scared, Marcus. I'm scared you're going to take him from me." "I'm not going to take him from you," I said. "He's your mother. You raised him. You loved him. But Rebecca, he's my son. And I've already missed 14 years. I don't want to miss any more." The DNA results came back on day 3. 99.9% probability of paternity. Tyler Morrison was my son. The thing about life-changing revelations is that they don't come with an instruction manual. There's no guidebook for how to build a relationship with a teenage son you didn't know existed who also bullied your niece. The first real conversation Tyler and I had was at a coffee shop, neutral territory. Rebecca Morrison came too, sitting at a nearby table to give us space, but staying close enough to intervene if needed. "I don't know how to do this," Tyler said, stirring his hot chocolate. "I don't know how to have a dad. I don't know how to be a dad," I admitted, especially not to a teenager. I missed all the important parts. First steps, first words, first day of school. "You missed a lot of therapy appointments too," Tyler said with a weak smile. "I've got issues, man. Capital I issues." "Yeah, well, join the club. I spent most of my 20s in therapy dealing with my parents' divorce and the guilt of thinking I'd abandoned Rebecca." "You didn't know. Doesn't make it hurt less." We sat in silence for a moment. "I'm sorry," Tyler said finally, "for what I did to Emma. I know sorry doesn't fix it, but I am. I was so angry, and she was just there, and I took it out on her. You need to apologize to her, not to me. To her. I know. I'm scared she won't forgive me. She might not. And you'll have to live with that, but you still need to try." Tyler nodded. Then, quietly, "Do you want to be my dad?" The question hit me like a truck. "Yes," I said, "more than anything. But I also know it's not that simple. You have a mom, you have a life. I can't just walk in and expect you to call me dad and act like we've known each other forever. What if we start small? Like maybe we could hang out once a week, get to know each other?" "I'd like that. And maybe you could come to my basketball games? I'm not very good, but I'm on the JV team. I'll be at every game." For the first time since this whole thing started, Tyler smiled. A real smile. And I saw Rebecca Chen in that smile. The girl who'd been kind to me when no one else was. Tyler apologizing to Emma was one of the hardest things I've ever witnessed. We set it up at our house. Sarah, Emma, me, Tyler, and Rebecca Morrison. Emma sat on the couch, arms crossed, face set in stone. Tyler stood in front of her, hand shaking. "Emma, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything I did to you, for making you feel unsafe at school, for making you cry, for making you dread going to class every day. There's no excuse for what I did. I was dealing with some stuff, but that doesn't make it okay." Emma stared at him, silent. "I know you probably hate me," Tyler continued, "and you have every right to, but I want you to know that I'm going to do better. I'm going to be better. And if there's anything I can do to make this right, I'll do it." More silence. Then Emma spoke. "You made me feel like I was nothing, like I didn't matter, Like I was so worthless that I deserved to be treated like garbage. Tyler's face crumpled. I know. I'm not done. Emma's voice was steel. You made me hate going to school. You made me question everything about myself. You made me feel alone. Tears streamed down Tyler's face. But Emma continued, and Tyler looked up. My uncle Marcus taught me something. He taught me that hurt people, and that the strongest thing you can do is choose to break that cycle. She stood up. I don't forgive you yet. Maybe I will someday, maybe I won't, but I'm willing to try because apparently you're my cousin now, and family is complicated. Tyler let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving me a chance. Sarah was crying. Rebecca Morrison was crying. I was definitely crying. Emma walked over to Tyler and held out her hand. Truce? Tyler shook it. Truce. The next few months were an adjustment for everyone. Tyler started therapy, real, intensive therapy to deal with his anger, his identity crisis, and the trauma of learning his entire life had been built on a well-intentioned lie. Emma started therapy too, to process the bullying and the bizarre twist her family had taken. I started therapy because, honestly, everyone in this story needed therapy.
Tyler and I started our weekly hangouts, coffee shops, basketball games, movies, just driving around and talking, getting to know each other, learning each other's quirks and habits and sense of humor. He had my sarcasm, my tendency to use humor to deflect from serious emotions, my love of terrible action movies, and my inability to cook anything more complicated than scrambled eggs. But he also had Rebecca Chen's kindness, her empathy, her ability to see the good in people even when they'd hurt her. At school, Tyler became Emma's unofficial protector. When other kids tried to mess with her, Tyler shut it down. Not with violence or threats, but with the social capital he'd built up over the years. Turns out, when the former bully tells everyone to leave someone alone, they listen. Emma and Tyler didn't become best friends overnight, but they became something. Allies, family, two kids navigating the weird reality that the bully and the victim were now cousins. Rebecca Morrison and I worked out a custody arrangement. Tyler would stay with her during the week. She was his mom, after all, the woman who'd raised him, but he'd spend weekends with me, slowly building a relationship, slowly becoming father and son. Sarah forgave me for the secret I'd never actually kept. She even started inviting Rebecca Morrison to family dinners. Two women who'd been brought together by tragedy and teenage pregnancy and a diary that should have been lost to time. 6 months after that meeting in the principal's office, Tyler had his first basketball game of the season. I sat in the bleachers wearing a homemade t-shirt that said Tyler's dad, that Sarah had made as a joke, but I wore unironically. Emma sat next to me holding a sign that said, "Go Tyler, even though you were a jerk." Rebecca Morrison sat on my other side holding my hand. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for not trying to take him from me." I said back, "Thank you for raising him, for loving him, for being his mom when I couldn't be his dad. We're doing okay, aren't we? All of us?" "Yeah," I said, watching Tyler warm up on the court. Tyler looked up into the stands, found me, and waved. I waved back. He mouthed, "Watch this." Then he took a shot from half court. It bounced off the rim, hit the backboard, and somehow miraculously went in. The crowd went wild. Tyler's teammates mobbed him, and he looked up at me with the biggest smile I'd ever seen. That's when I knew, despite everything, the lost years, the pain, the bullying, the secrets, we were going to be okay. Because family isn't just about blood. It's not about being there from the beginning. It's about showing up. It's about choosing each other every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Tyler Morrison came into my life as my niece's bully, but he became my son. And that diary, that old, worn diary I'd written when I was 15 and angry at the world, became the bridge that connected us. Sometimes the worst moments of your life lead to the best ones. Sometimes the things you think you've lost come back to you in ways you never expected. And sometimes a bully asking to speak to you alone changes everything. 2 years later, Tyler graduated from high school. I was there in the audience, sitting between Rebecca Morrison and Sarah, with Emma cheering louder than anyone. When they called his name, Tyler walked across that stage with his head held high. And when he got his diploma, he looked right at me and mouthed, "We made it, Dad!" Yeah, kid, we made it. The diary sits on my bookshelf now, a reminder of the past, but also of the future, of second chances and found family, and the incredible, messy, beautiful complexity of love. Tyler still calls Rebecca Morrison Mom, but he calls me Dad. And somehow, impossibly, that works. Emma and Tyler are close now, real close. She's teaching him to be better, and he's teaching her to be stronger. They're both teaching me that forgiveness is possible, even when it seems impossible. Life is strange. One day you're sitting in a principal's office, ready to defend your niece from her bully. The next day, that bully is your son, and you're figuring out how to build a family from the broken pieces of the past. But here's what I've learned. The best families aren't the ones that are perfect. They're the ones that are real, the ones that fight and forgive and show up for each other even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And if a 15-year-old me could see where that diary ended up, connecting me to a son I never knew I had, healing wounds I didn't know existed, building a family I never expected, I think he'd be pretty damn proud. I know I am.